everybody. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. I want to remind everybody, hit that like, share, and subscribe button. There's a PayPal link down there for anybody that wants to share some love. And of course, the StreamYard link is there for anybody that wants to join the panel. We've got John with us again tonight. Been a while. How you doing, John?
Good, brother Keith. Doing really good. Yeah.
Good.
Keep them cool here. It's really humid and hot.
Yeah, we actually had a couple days where it cooled down here now. It's been in the upper 70s instead of the 90s, so we're doing better here as well.
Oh, okay, that's good.
So tonight we're going to talk about the eligible contract participants and block deals as they relate to swaps. If anybody's familiar with swaps, that's an investing term. So we're going to take a look at a few things, and this is stemming from that financial index that I got from the court years back, where we discussed that they used the firm name in lieu of the last name and the obligor number instead of the Social Security number. And what happened was, if you're familiar, I've got some cases I'm dealing with down at the local courthouse. Recently, I had a failure to appear for jury duty for myself, as well as a case where they came in and did a debt collection on my companion. We didn't know anything about it until they came in and took money out of her account. And so we asked for financial index for her, and they wanted to try to hide the case. Well, in that financial index that we got from them, we found about several other cases. So I've been doing some research on the stuff, and on that financial index, let me put my screen share up. You guys are familiar with this. This is that picture that I showed you on my financial index. You see up the top left corner, it says financial index, and where they use the firm name instead of the last name, and they use the Social Security number without dashes as the obligor. Well, there's another part on here in this section right here where you see the DOB, and then it's got the birth date, the Social Security number. Again, they say it's a Social Security number, but they display it without the dashes. And according to the IRS agent that I saw here a few weeks back, they say that's a regular business practice on their side. Everybody does this. We're told to give them the Social Security number with the dashes, but in their system, they enter it in without the dashes as an obligor number. The Medical Association does this. The schools do this. Everything does. Every financial institution does this on their books. Then
it's reformatted so they can batch process.
Batch processing. What does batch sound like? A pool. They're going to put everything in one batch. They pool everything together. Exactly right. So we've got the driver's license number here, and then we've got this number. It says PIN, and then it's BL followed by seven numbers. So it's a 9-digit or 9-character identifier. It's a 9-character identifier, and it's called a PIN. Now, this PIN is a positioner identification number, and the BL with its number, this is a block deal number. And the same thing as batch and pool. Block deal means the same thing. They're taking all of the small investments, putting them in one block, and dealing that one block. This is the same thing as the blockchain. They have all the data elements in one block, and it's entered into a chain of evidence. Okay? So this is what we're talking about. The positioner identification number and a BL number, known as a block deal. Let me get my other screen up now. And oops. And this is my notepad where I keep all my notes when I'm doing my research. And so BL, according to Social Security, is a budget letter or benefits letter. So I'll read about this real quick because this is part of the research where I started. She said, Brittany at the local courthouse told me specifically that they used the social to generate a BL number. This is so they can enter certain data elements into the C.O.W.A.R.D.S. And so I question, is this for block trades, also signified by BL? So when I look up BL, what I do is I ask the search engine, what does BL stand for in Social Security? What does BL stand for in investments? What does BL stand for in this or that? And I ask it the same thing. What does BL stand for according to various different categories? And so what I came up with, here it says, when you ask if it's related to Social Security, it says a budget letter can have multiple meanings, including a document that verifies Social Security benefits, or a letter that provides budget information for an organization. Also known as a budget letter, benefits letter, proof of income letter, or proof of award letter. This document can verify that someone receives Social Security benefits. Supplemental Security income, or Medicare. Medicare is the Part B of Social Security. Now, when you sign up for Social Security, there are three benefits: Social Security benefits itself, supplemental security income, and Medicare. Medicare you get during your lifetime while you are employed or something like that as a general Medicare service, medical services. So you don't have to wait until you're retired or become disabled to receive Medicare, okay? It can also show that someone has never received benefits or SSI or has applied for benefits. Individuals can request a benefit verification letter online using their Social Security account. And this is the thing I think I'm looking for, that will tell you that when you're born, you are classified as a Medicare qualified government employee. And this is the problem. That ID says that you're affiliated with the government as a United States business. So when I ask the search engine, excuse me, when I ask the search engine, what does BL mean in investment? It comes up with, what are CME block trades? A block trade is a privately negotiated futures, options, or combination transaction that is permitted to be executed apart from the public auction market. Participation in block trades is restricted to eligible contract participants. Very important phrase here because they never define it. They never actually define it. We're going to go over what they do say about eligible contract participants, but they never actually define it. And I'll show you that it's a reasonably believed to be eligible contract participant that they're using. See, the duty of care, as we spoke of here recently, in accordance to the integrity of the record, is destroyed when they take in eligible contract participants or reasonably believed, persons reasonably believed to be eligible contract participants. And that's partly our problem because we've been duped into believing that we need that identification. And then when we present that identification, that is actually prima facie evidence that you are an eligible contract participant. That's all it takes, in my opinion, of course, according to my research. An eligible contract participant literally means acting for its own account. Its own account. Not on behalf of another one, but for its own account, as that term is defined in the Commodity Exchange Act. So we're going to take a look at part of the Commodity Exchange Act where they talk about eligible contract participants. And since it's a commodity, the definition is going to be in the Agricultural Code. So we're going to see that as well. It says, how do you identify a block trade? According to the New York Stock Exchange, a block trade should involve at least 10,000 shares within the stock market or $200,000 worth of bonds within the Treasury market. So we know they're dealing in the Treasury market. And it says, although this figure is generally a lot higher, these shares do not include penny stocks, but rather more established or blue chip companies. Now remember, I told you these guys are dealing with state securities laws known as blue sky security laws. And that's the blue chips, because you're a blue collar worker as an eligible contract participant. Again, in my opinion, according to my research. As we go on, is block trading illegal? Block trading is legal and regulated by the securities laws in most countries. However, there are specific rules and regulations that govern block trading to ensure transparency and fairness in the market. Block trade, BOL, in international trade, a bill of lading, often referred to as BL or B/L, is used when shipping goods from supplier to buyer. A block refers to a large volume trade that occurs at once. And like I said, these courts take all of their daily actions, and it's one block trade made every day based on the day's actions, so long as it hits 200,000. Block trades are sometimes done outside of the open markets to lessen the impact on the securities price. So they are buying and selling securities. And we're going to take a look at this on Investopedia later. And that has to do with the slugs. State and local government securities. So let's get into it. Still with me there, John?
Yeah, sure am.
All right. So when I ask the just regular Google Chrome says, what does BL stand for in the Court Registry Investment System? What does BL stand for in the Court Registry Investment System? So it says Midland District of North Carolina. The first one comes up, Court Registry Investment System, Chris. And down here it says missing the BL. So it doesn't have information about the BL. We find this common. Southern District of Iowa Bankruptcy Court Registry Investment System. Now, why does it mention the bankruptcy court? Because it's a bankruptcy system. It's a debt-based system. Again, BL missing. Administrative order from Westlaw. Again, no BL. Local government code chapter is Texas. It doesn't say whether there's a BL missing or whether they recognize BL, but I'm not going to look for it there. Security and Exchange Commission. It does have something about the BL, but it says AI through BL. So we can look at that if you want, but I'm just going down here to show you that BL is involved in a lot of different things, but it's not always going to be the same. They're going to have their own different use for it, as we know in the use status or use of the matrix. They're going to have their own contracts, and under their own contracts, they're going to have their own terms and conditions. Now, even though the term might be BL, it might be the abbreviation for something different than a different contract. They're all going to be different. So Social Security might use BL, but it uses BL to stand for a budget letter, whereas the Court Registry Investment System uses it as a block trade. And I spoke on this before. I mentioned here not too long ago about the Court Registry Investment System and how it's about investing in federal funds. So the states use a 1031 exchange system of property outside the United States as private property from private investors, you and me, the people, as eligible contract participants without knowing it, and then convert it to their side as an asset. So let's take a look at the Commodities Exchange Act, Section 22, swaps. This is the only place that they mention eligible contract participants in this Commodities Exchange Act text. Swaps, no agreement, contract, or transaction between eligible contract participants or persons reasonably believed to be eligible contract participants. Shall be void, voidable, or unenforceable, and no party to such agreement, contract, or transaction shall be entitled to rescind or recover any payment with respect to the agreement, contract, or transaction under this section or any other provision of federal or state law based solely on the failure of the agreement, contract, or transaction. Notice what they did there. Up here, it says no agreement, contract, or transaction between eligible contract participants. So it's void, voidable, or unenforceable, and no party to such agreement. So if a person was reasonably believed to be eligible contract participant, but he wasn't actually eligible, is it voidable for that? Most certainly. And no party to such agreement. If you don't know there's an agreement going on, then you're not party to it. Particularly when we're talking about an investment agreement where they're going to swap the data elements for their own use. Let's look at the next one. This is U.S. Code 1A, definitions. And remember, 7 U.S.C. 136 has a definition for animal which includes but is not limited to man. Commodities exchange are dependent upon the agriculture. We as man are considered agriculture, and that birth certificate is evidence of a commodity. So let's look at 18. 18, eligible contract participant means acting for its own account. A financial institution. Do you have a wallet in your pocket, John?
Yes.
Would you know that that's a financial institution everywhere you go with that ID in it that claims that address?
Hmm.
I'm
Didn't
going to
know
show you.
that.
Yeah, I'm going to show you that here in a minute. Let's continue on with this real quick first, because it goes on to say an insurance company that is regulated by a state or that is regulated by a foreign government is subject to comparable regulations determined by a commission, including a regulated subsidiary or affiliate of such insurance company. An investment company, subject to the regulation under the Investment Company Act of 1950, and that's, or 1940, that's 15 U.S.C. 80A-1. 15 U.S. code is foreign commerce. So an investment company has to be foreign, folks, or a foreign person performing a similar role or function. See, you don't have to be eligible. You don't have to be qualified. You're just performing a similar role or function. Actions speak louder than your words. Subject as such to foreign regulation, regardless of whether each investor in the investment company or foreign person itself is an eligible contract participant. A commodity pool that has total assets exceeding $5 million and is formed and operated by a person subject to regulation under this chapter, or a foreign person performing a similar role or function subject to such to foreign regulation. Provided, however, that for purposes of Section 2C, 2BVI of this section and Section 2C, 2CVII of this title, the term eligible contract participant shall not include a commodity pool in which any participant is not otherwise an eligible contract participant. So they go from persons reasonably believed to be eligible contract participants to which shall not include a commodity pool in which any participant is not otherwise an eligible contract participant. Let's go back up here to 10 and look at that commodity pool. The term commodity pool means any investment trust, syndicate, or similar form of enterprise operated for the purpose of trading in commodity interests, including commodity for future delivery, security futures product, or swap. Swap. In general, as provided in subparagraph B, the term swap means any agreement, contract, or transaction that is put, call, cap, floor, collar, or similar option of any kind that is for purchase or sale, or based on the value of one or more interest or other rates, currencies, commodities, securities, instruments of indebtedness, indices, quantitative measures, or other financial or economic interest or property of any kind. What is an indices, folks? Is that a financial index? So let's take a look at the next one, which is from Investopedia. What is an eligible contract participant? An eligible contract participant is an individual or an entity that's permitted to engage in certain financial transactions that aren't open to the average investor. In other words, they're private. They're away from the public market. They are private, not open to the average investor. ECPs are often corporations, partnerships, organizations, trusts, brokerage firms, or investors that have total assets in the millions. Very stringent requirements must be met before one can achieve eligible contract participant status. Understanding eligible contract participants outlines the Commodity Exchange Act outlines qualifications for ECP eligibility in Section 1A18. Seven USC 1A 18. It's what we just read. Okay. Eligible contract participants, such as financial institutions. Remember what we talked about yesterday? That hospital is a financial institution, is it not? Insurance companies and investment management firms have sufficient regulatory status, but others can become ECPs as well. So they take a bunch of private investments, small investments, pool them all together on their books, and then instead of entering them in those names, they enter it in their name as the eligible contract participant. And nobody knows about you. But that's where they get all of the investments from you. Let's take a look at the next one. As it relates to that card you've got in your wallet, John, that has that address on it, and the Postal Service. The Postal Service debt obligations. I bet you thought the United States was the only one with a debt obligation, right? The United States is obligated to all bonds. Postal Service debt is equity. That's their capital. The capital of the Postal Service shall consist of the equity. So, under 762.12 definitions, it says financial organization. Well, let's start out with Federal Reserve Bank. It means a Federal Reserve Bank or branch thereof. And a financial organization means any bank, savings bank, savings and loan association, or similar institution, or federal or state chartered credit union. Okay? Financial organization, Federal Reserve Bank means any bank. Person or person means an individual or individuals, or an organization or organizations, whether incorporated or not, including all forms of banking institutions. Financial institution. That card in your wallet is evidence that you are acting as your own banking institution. As an eligible contract participant in the banking system.
Yep, that's one of the definitions of identity, is to verify a bank's customer.
Yep.
Yeah. And then another one, Keith, is ascribe the qualities of another. Isn't that interesting?
Ascribed. Yeah, ascribed. meaning somebody else scribbled them down.
Right.
Absolutely. So what I did, and I'm used to using a site called U.com. It's a chat GPT program, and you can enter this into several different chat GPT programs, and you're likely going to get up a lot of the same information. What I like about this one is it actually gives you footnotes that you can follow up and that supports its what it's telling you. Whereas the regular chat GPT that came out doesn't do that, and that's why they've already issued orders for the attorneys that they're not supposed to be using chat GPT to draw up their documents because it's not accurate. And this is why I say, don't believe me, don't believe the neighbor, don't believe the government. For crying out loud, don't believe your mother. Do your research so you know. Don't be putting shit into a chat GPT and expect that to be research. You have to do follow-up research, just like I said with when you put a thing into your search engine. You don't look at just the top result. You've got several sources to look at, like I showed you earlier, that you can use to discern what it is you're actually wanting to find. So let's go on to the next one, which is the chat GPT thing that I use. It's called U.com. And I just put in, what does BL stand for in the court registry investment system, just like I did with Google, okay? And here it says, understanding BL in the court registry investment system. In the context of court registry investment system, Chris, BL stands for block deals. So when Brittany tried to tell me that it does not stand for block deals, she is absolutely wrong. And all of the information I'm going to show you is going to point that out to you. Block deals refer to trades executed through a single transaction involving a large quantity of securities. In the case of Chris, block deals are likely related to the investment and management of funds within the system. And this is accurate because we're going to read about it later. It's important to note that the CRIS is an interest-bearing cash management tool administered by the Administrative Office of the United States Courts. So I don't care what court says we don't have anything to do with the federal government. The fuck you don't. Everything you get is funded by the federal government. You have to admit that without that, you have no authority. Your authority only comes from the Administrative Office of the U.S. Courts. It provides clerks with an efficient and safe way to comply with federal requirements. So again, don't tell me you don't have anything to do with the federal courts. You have requirements concerning the handling of court registry funds. The funds within the CRIS are invested in government account securities under the Bureau of Public Debt's federal investment program. So don't tell me this government has its own credit. It gets its credit off the backs of you and me. Nowhere else, even at the federal level. It has to come from us at the local level, and it is most certainly regulated by the federal government for such mismanagement and taking advantage of unknown participants. It goes to the transparency and the integrity of that record, as I've been shouting about all along. So,
and Keith, do you know that in Barron's, there's an actual definition called Federal Reserve credit. So you're right.
Yeah, it's a Federal Reserve credit based upon your investments during your lifetime into that system because you believe you're part of that system. And you're not. So let's continue on. Like I said, those footnotes here are an important part of my research. So we went on and we looked into the first footnote, and this is the set of definitions. So I'm going to read through a couple of these just so you get a sense. Interpleader funds deposited under 28 U.S.C. 1335 meet the IRS definition of disputed ownership funds. Disputed ownership funds. A taxable entity that requires tax administration. Throughout this RFP, several terms are used frequently. In the following paragraphs, we provide a brief listing of these terms and their meaning within the context of the RFP. Allocation. Allocation report. The contractor delivers to all participating courts 2 days prior to the next settlement date a report reflecting the allocation of earnings to the case assets. Case assets, folks. Is your name on that case? Are they using your name as an asset in a trade? Are they using a trademark? It's not been protected yet. Invested on the previous settlement date, the contractor shall deliver to the CRIS fund manager a list of the assets showing both the source of earnings on the next settlement date and all allocation report for the next settlement date, two days prior to the next allocation report. Why do you think they want you to fill out those tax reports and have a bank statement ready? And know whether you have a job or not. Where do you work? They need they need to know where you work, where you bank, and your last IRS filings. The court registry investment system is a cash management system used by the judiciary. So it is a judicial concern, not an administrative concern. It is an investment, not a penalty or fine. If you're telling me it's one thing on one side and using it another on the other side, and it's my asset, that's non-disclosure. That's failure to disclose. To manage funds that are temporarily deposited with a federal court. The court registry investment system is a cash management system used by the judiciary to manage funds that are temporarily deposited with a federal court while a dispute is resolved. So again, do not tell me you don't have anything to do with the federal government. That's bullshit. CRIS, which is currently administered by the clerk of the Texas Southern, is characterized by the pooling of funds from individual cases to purchase treasury notes and bills which are held to maturity. If they can't do it on their own and they need you to do it with them, where is your part of the investment? You are actually the principal. Without them, without you, there would be no secondary action by them. You are the principal, and they are secondary in every case. CRIS, eligible investments. The contractor must annually prepare a list of investments that are eligible for inclusion in the CRIS portfolio. The list must be consistent with the CRIS investment strategy and must reflect a contractor's best professional advice about the investment instruments that will most effectively accomplish the established objectives for the CRIS system. Not for you, not for anybody else. So what was that about the persons reasonably believed to be eligible? If they're only reasonably believed to be eligible, would it be reasonable to believe that these people aren't asking for such investment list because they're just reasonably believed to be eligible and they'll just take whatever they get? Contractor, for the purpose of this RFP, the contractor is the organization with the financial and management capacity to, in accordance with the requirements and specifications set forth in Section C, develop a CRIS investment strategy, buy and sell securities, provide for the maintenance of case records, and manage and perform controlled disbursement functions. So, if they take you to court and they hand you a document, is that a case record that they just assigned you to take and provide, maintain, so that they can come collect for you to disperse your Federal Reserve notes in cash? Are they swapping you as the contractor? See, that's the swap, folks. U.S. courts often require one or both of the parties to a dispute to deposit funds with the court while the litigation is resolved. These funds are known collectively as registry funds. The clerk of the court with whom the funds are deposited is required to administer a cash management system to ensure the safekeeping of the funds. The clerk has fiduciary responsibility for all funds in the registry. So if they're the ones financing it and funding it, and they bring you into a case, and then they assess the fines, fees, and penalties, what they're doing is they're telling you, you have to pay for that investment so they can recoup their loss. Does that make sense? U.S. courts often require one or both of the parties to a dispute to deposit funds with the court while the litigation is resolved. Are you familiar with the IOLTA, interest on lawyer's trust account? So let's take a look at the next part. Office of Chief Counsel, Internal Revenue Service Memorandum. Issue: whether fund, which aggregates court registry items from B courts, constitutes a disputed ownership fund of the income tax regulations. The B courts continuously maintain numerous interest-bearing court registry items. Several of the B courts currently pool the court registry items into one investment system fund. Fund is comprised of an aggregation of court registry items and invest the court registry items in government securities. You suppose those court registry items are the court documents with your name on it and assessing the different values according to the Wyrd's terms and conditions? Fund is overseen by taxpayer and was created to protect the principal of the court registry items. Fund is overseen by taxpayer. Who is the taxpayer? If they say just a blanket statement, taxpayer. Once deposited in fund at the governmental entity, the court registry items never leave the governmental entity and cannot be bought, sold, or traded outside of the governmental entity. Huh? An eligible contract participant is an individual or entity that's permitted to engage in certain financial transactions that aren't open to the average investor. Cannot be bought, sold, or traded outside of the government entity. So they're buying and selling within the governmental entity, and you're included in that governmental entity as a United States citizen running a United States business. So of course it doesn't leave. Remember 12 U.S.C. 411? And for no other purpose are authorized. That ID in your pocket, John, is stating that you're a transfer agent of some sort, an eligible contract participant allowed to move those funds within the governmental entity. Fund also ensures that the court registry items are readily available to meet court-ordered disbursements when litigation is resolved. Court registry items consist of cash deposited by court orders in the registries of B courts pending the resolution of litigation. Read that again. The court registry items consist of cash deposited by court orders in the registries of B courts pending the resolution of litigation. So the cash we have here, people, I'm telling you, and again, don't believe me, don't believe the neighbor, don't believe the government, for crying out loud, don't believe your neighbor or your mother. Do your research so you know. But I am telling you, paper is known as commercial paper. Money is negotiable instruments. On that paper, you can negotiate it instrumentally. That is cash itself. The very definition of cash. Money on hand. The court registry's items are subject to conflicting claims of ownership of various parties. The court registry items, the court registry data, the data elements you gave them are subject to conflicting claims of ownership of various parties. And I'm telling you again, there is no one else that can perfect that title except you, because the data elements is your name. The ownership of the court registry item is considered undefined pending the court's determination of ownership. The court registry items are held in the name and to the credit of the court. One simple term that you could put in with any court document: this court and its registry are to hold this name and these items to my credit, or to the credit of Keith Little. Clerks of the court are required to invest those court registry items in interest-bearing accounts or court-approved interest-bearing instruments. Interest-bearing instruments, again, negotiable instruments. Pursuant to Law 1, a court order is required for any disbursement from a court registry item pursuant to Law 2. Maintaining court registry items that qualify as dispute of funds or disputed ownership of funds on an item-by-item basis will create administrative burdens on the courts and impose costs that are larger than the amounts of interest earned. I'm going to read that again. Maintaining court registry items that qualify as disputed ownership funds on an item-by-item basis will create administrative burdens on the courts and impose costs that are larger than the amounts of interest earned. Taxpayer requests that B courts be able to treat fund as a single disputed ownership fund using a single employer identification number for purposes of filing a single federal income tax return rather than file multiple returns on an individual basis for each court registry item invested in fund. So what do you think, John? You think I'm spot on? Am I off? Do I not know what I'm talking about? What's the deal here?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're Federal Reserve agents. We're nominal ones anyway when we handle FRNs. And then, if we're the bank teller, now that's the transfer agent, right? And then
Yep.
let's say if you're a credit card department worker, now you're a conversion agent. So yeah, I would say you're spot on tonight.
Yeah, all based on performing similar functions, folks. All based on performing similar functions. The presumption is that you are an eligible contract participant known as a contract postal unit using an address as a financial institution, a principal place of business. And you don't even have a cash register. All you got is a fucking wallet. You don't have any employees. You don't have a private trust banker, nothing. But you're certainly performing the similar functions. And this is why I say if you don't know what banking's about, I don't think you should have a bank account. You should really understand what banking is about, what the investing is about, all of that before you go doing that stuff. It's imperative. I urge people to start teaching your children how this banking system works, how the investments work, how to stay out of them courts because of it. That you're not supposed to have an ID. You're supposed to, at the age of 18, according to my research, in my opinion, establish the fact that you are of age of majority and you have taken upon an education and studied to show yourself worthy and approved and can rightly divide the word of truth and go out upon the world with your talents and make your investment in the Lord's money. So with that, we're done with tonight's stream. I hope everybody enjoyed it. I hope I showed you some keys that are pertinent in this system. How to see it. Like I said, I speak to these people down at the courthouse, and I'm not always very nice to them. But they certainly give me information and show me their ignorance when they try to tell me that they don't know what something means, and they should, and that it doesn't mean this, but they don't know what it means. And so if they're the ones with the job and they don't know what it all means and they're just doing their job, then how can they be doing their job at all if they don't know what anything means? That's my problem with this system. Again, my mom worked for Social Security Administration for fucking damn near 30 years, and I guarantee you, she never once read the Social Security Act. My dad worked for the real estate, for the tax assessors all his life, for the federal and local government as a real estate appraiser, and didn't know the first thing about the prospect that, sorry, you shouldn't be putting a tax value on a home unless it's actually running a business out of that home, unless that place is actually a financial institution investing in these kinds of block trades and shit. Or at least be an eligible contract participant for income. See, income isn't anything but investing in something else and then getting a return on it. That's not your labor. Your labor is compensatory. Income is not a compensation. It's an investment where you're taking advantage of the loss of another man. hoping that others will buy into it and raise the price and the value so that when it matures and comes back, it's gained some value. But as we see here, it tells us, what is it? Maintaining court registry items that qualify as disputed owner funds on an item by item basis will create administrative burdens on the courts and impose costs that are larger than the amounts of interest earned. It's a debt-based system. They know they cannot make enough off the interest to make a profit, yet they're investing in it, and those investments are creating a loss on another man. Everybody that buys into those investments, they're buying into the investment as the loss of another man. The guy that got duped into being an eligible contract participant, not knowing that he's not even qualified to participate. He doesn't have a board of directors as a corporate entity to hire an attorney to make a representation in the court. Yet there he is. He's standing there in court screaming at the top of his lungs, "Fuck you, you ain't my daddy." Been doing it all my life, people. Why do you think I'm doing this research now? I'm tired of it. And I know you would be tired of it too if you went through what I did. And that's why I'm doing this, so you don't have to. So your children don't have to. I could care less. They want to come arrest me now? Come do it. I don't care what you want to arrest me for. I'll sit there and patient. I'm comfortable in my skin. And I'm going to sit there and I'm going to educate everybody, including those other inmates. So please come arrest me. I'm sure they will listen. They want to hear this shit. They're eager. You're the one with the job that just wants to do your job, and you're the one that doesn't give a rat's ass. So go ahead and arrest me. Go ahead and take me, drag me in. Put me back in there. That's why Jesus went to the sinners. They're the ones that need to be saved. I don't need to save your ass. You got a good cushion job working for the government. The ones that need to be saved are the ones behind the bars. So anyway, Melvin, I don't know why you guys don't come up. All you got to do is click on the StreamYard link. It's right there. To Marry Indians of America says, I'm in the process of suing City of New Orleans municipality for violation of grand larceny of taking private property. They're giving us a silent treatment after letter of demand, no fire register. Great, they're in default. So you enter a judgment and motion the court for default, and then when the court grants your order of default, you go back and you send them a notice that the court has issued a default and you're making a claim on such and such an amount of money. If they fail to respond again, that's again failure to allow cure. You go back to the court and motion the court to order of execution. You're allowed so much property, and you request the court an order of execution. Find out what they've got for property. If you're making a claim of $150,000 and you want a $150,000 home that they're sitting in, make the order of execution on their home for that value. Contract terms and conditions, learn them. They failed to respond. That's dishonor. That's default. You've already got them in default. Motion the court for order of default judgment. They issue the order of default judgment. You send them a notice that, hey, you're in default. And when you're suing a court like New Orleans municipality, one of the suggestions is don't use New Orleans municipality as the place that you're going to sue them. Go to another state or at least another county and sue them from there. Next friends, all this kind of stuff. Learn how they're doing it. Learn how to use the same thing. If they can use the color of language, so can you. Learn how to color it. All right, well, with that, I guess I'm out. What do you got for the end of the day, John?
So, Keith, if I was a trustee of a trust, okay, and I unlawfully converted the assets held in the trust, I'd go to jail.
Yep.
So, and then are courts reporting any income they derive from trust activity?
No.
Or, yeah, see?
It's called an investment, and the courts don't get the investment. The federal government does. It's in the federal fund. They get disbursements. That's not an income. They do a funny thing with that language, folks. It's very colorful.
Right. Oh, good show, Keith. Good show.
All right. Well, I appreciate you showing up again, John. And you guys know me. I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. That's to say, I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you don't respect me. That's on you. So may God bless you and have a good night, folks. We'll see you again next time.